This is RaShelle Roberts, and this is our second Creative Jam. I have Luke Mysse with me today, and I've known Luke since 2001, Luke? 2?
That sounds right.
Right. And I met Luke facilitating Brew, when I was facilitating Brew.
Mhm.
And he runs and owns a company called crossgrain.com. So I'm going to let you, Luke, go into. I want you to tell us who you are, what you're about, and what your background is, if you don't mind.
Okay. Again, Luke Mysse. I've had a business called crossgrain.com, Crossgrain Creative Studios, for 17 years, and started out in doing a lot of kind of branding and stuff. And the last 5 years, I've been doing more marketing and strategy. But I've also started pursuing pretty heavily some stuff in the nonprofit world. And that's something that I'm probably transitioning to over the next year or so.
So I'd like to hear a little bit from you. I'd like everybody to hear from you about what this next venture for you is, what you have next on your plate.
Yeah, so it's been about 5 years ago. I kind of would say that I was probably at what I felt was the top of my career, top of my game. I kind of had a big vision for where the business wanted to go. And I had kind of this epiphany. It was actually with you. We were in Vegas for a round table with a bunch of other designers. I think the common factor for everybody in the room is that they had worked with you at one time or another. If I remember correctly, there was about 15 of us in the room, and everybody was kind of going around the room and expressing the things that they wanted to accomplish in their life, or the kind of the big juicy goals. And I realized that I loved everything that they were expressing, but I realized that it just wasn't me. And it was the first time in my career that I came to the realization that I had been pursuing something and building a design business, building a boutique, creative studio, and trying to staff up and get clients and all that. And it just wasn't satisfying. It wasn't something that I even saw myself doing long term. And I kind of left that experience really confused and frustrated, because I felt like I had just gone through some of that discovery of writing my business plan and things like that. And here I was now back at what I felt like was ground zero of having to start over and rediscover who I was. And part of it too was personally, my health was kind of a mess. I was incredibly overweight, and again, just wasn't happy. And I felt like I was working, but I didn't feel like it was my life's work, which is something I've used a lot lately. I think there's the difference of your work and then your life's work, and what is the thing that you'd be willing to kind of give your life to. And so through some years of discovery and some heartbreak through losing some clients and some frustrations through having a really tough couple of years, I discovered this real passion I have for helping people. And it started to show me, when I look at a lot of relationships that were rewarding in business, of being able to help certain companies, that's when it became clear to me that regardless of what I do, it had to be around this idea of helping. And at the same time, so it's been about 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I got exposed to a problem in the world called severe acute malnutrition. It's a issue that afflicts young children that are 1,000 days or younger. So Africa, India, South America, very poor areas. And these little kids, even if they're given emergency food, they just don't recover, and they need something a little bit different. And so through some friends of mine, they started a factory out in Georgia, and they make this peanut butter-based product that absolutely brings these kids back from the brink of death. And so I saw my son tasting a sample of it, and I realized that he will never deal with this issue because he was born here. It's the only reason he'll never deal with it. And I did what any good business guy does. I did the pros and cons list of why I should and shouldn't get involved. And I really couldn't come up with any other bad reasons other than I didn't know what I was going to do to pay the bills and grow my business. And I just felt like that wasn't a good enough reason to not get involved. And so I got involved in that cause at that time. The name of that organization is Man and Nutrition. I've since co-founded a new organization called Stop Sam. And the idea of Stop Sam is to raise money and awareness for this issue. The issue affects about 20 million kids at any given time. 3 million of those kids die. And so it's just a matter of getting packets to them. And so I'm now kind of at that point where I'm ready to make the transition to go work on this cause full time. And so leveraging all my relationships, all my abilities that I've, gathered over the years in business, and looking to go full time. I still don't know exactly what the transition is going to look like, but I've started making steps towards that. So I would say in the next year or so. And then there's a side kind of idea that I've been talking about for a couple of years that I have been trying to kill, and it just won't die. And that is to ride my bike across America to raise awareness for this issue and for the cause. And this last time I tried to kill it, I kind of put it on my wife, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Would you and the kids be willing to follow me? And I fully expected her to say no, absolutely not. And then I wouldn't have to think about it anymore. It would be, she killed it. I don't have to think about it. And to my surprise, she didn't say no. She said yes. And so that's our kind of plan for next year as I make the transition, is to go out on the road and ride my bike, do a lot of speaking. I love speaking. And so getting out in the country, going to be able to share the story of severe acute malnutrition, share my own business story, share our family story, a family that kind of packed up everything and got on the road to help these little kids. And so that's the plan for next year, for May of 2014.
I feel like the core of who we are is driven by passion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at times people think, well, yeah, but how are you going to pay your bills? Or are you really going to do that? So I'm curious. I want to answer the question before somebody even poses it, of what. Give me the logistics of how this is working and how you see it and how your vision is driving this.
I realize that there are just some things that I want to teach my kids that they're not going to learn anywhere else. And I think so often we buy into lies of like, what am I going to do to pay my bills? What am I, the business is going to fail and things like that. And we don't even entertain the idea that, well, maybe I could get sponsors for something like this. And maybe people would actually contribute money to see me do this because they see it as an investment in a nonprofit that's actually changing the world. And we don't even allow ourselves to kind of go down that road. We just immediately buy into the fear, and then it's over. I want to live in a way that says, like, this is it. This is serious. I want to teach them about leadership and teach them about adventure and teach them about helping others. And I'm willing to sacrifice comfort for all of that. What's amazing, though, is when you get on the other side of that, when you've bought in on that level, people start rallying behind you. I mean, I have
I was just
had
going to say that.
incredible things, like things just falling in my lap that I haven't even asked for.
You make a good point. So it's hard. It's not that it's hard work, but I noticed in coaching is that the most painful part of the coaching process is having people get real with themselves about what they really want, what their vision is.
Right.
And I think I've seen you and I've watched you really go through that process versus being, oh, I've got to get to the end. I got to know what my vision is. Really own that process for yourself of what, like you said in your TEDx talk, what is the legacy that you're going to leave for your kids?
Right.
And that takes courage. That's what I think takes courage, because we're a lot of times in a hurry to find so I can get on with it. But this is it, right? I mean, this is the point of the creative channel over. But here's the thing, is that as we own our gifts, of whatever our gifts are, however we give them, when we have certain pieces in our life that become rituals, that become a structure, it supports us to catapult us and to be ready for whatever comes next.
Right.
And so I think that I've seen you do the investigation, do the working on the business, stepping back and having a perspective on the outside looking in that has really helped you. And I've seen your work as far as who you're working with and the differences that you make, who you're speaking in front of, and what your message is, has it's to me, from the time I met you to now, it may be larger, it may be expanded, but the essence of who you are is from the moment I met you, it's the same to right this moment.
Right. Well, and I think when I think about this bike ride, it is about raising money and awareness to feed these kids. But at the end of the day, it's really about me leaving a legacy, and a legacy of hope for my own kids.
Well, so what are you doing to prepare yourself? I mean, you've been doing this work all your life, and What are you doing to prepare yourself right now for this transition?
One of the things that I've had over the last probably 5 to 6 years is I've had clients on. So from a business side, let's start there. So from a business side, one of the things that I've been doing is a lot more kind of retainer, where I have relationships with clients, and I kind of manage their marketing and do all the design and all that. And so I've got a book of clients that I do pretty much everything for. I'm shifting my kind of thought process and my perspective and how I work to more larger project work, because as I'm kind of actually going back to my roots, which is larger design branding projects that I know have a beginning and an end. It's a way for me to kind of pay the bills between now and then. And then the other thing is, I think rather than focusing on a large book of clients, if I only have to work with maybe 2 or 3 projects between now and May, it allows me more time to work on the ride. Because the bike ride, logistically, I mean, planning something like this is pretty huge.
Right.
You've got 6 months on the road. You've got, figuring out the route, figuring out sponsorships, figuring out speaking opportunities. There's just a whole mess of logistics. And so I feel like my adjustment now is to find a couple of large projects that can pay our base, and then from there be able to have the time to work on the ride. And then I'm also working on stuff directly related to Stop Sam. So we're doing some campaigns and different things.
So what would you say to anyone who's listening, as far as a little bit of feedback or thought to them on if they're hesitating on what they want to really follow, their dream, their vision?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of nugget would you tell them?
One of the things that I've played out in my head multiple times is, what's the worst thing that can happen? I think that we always kind of envision the worst of, like, gosh, if I take that risk, then I don't know, this, and this is going to happen, and then I'm going to end up homeless. Mm-hmm. The truth is, most of us have a support network around us that'll jump in and help us at any given moment. And I think we need to stop kind of buying into that lie that the whole world's going to fall apart. The truth is, even if I execute this ride to any moderate success, the relationships and things that I'm going to build through this, and the exposure that I'm going to have through this, is going to open up all kinds of different things. Mm-hmm. And so the courage...
Well, wait, right there. Sorry, I just have to say on that right there is what takes courage, is right there, is that it is unknown. And that's the magic, I think, of it. You don't know what's on the other side, but you're handing it over and you're trusting.
More and more, I'm just living with intent, knowing that, life is short, and it's not morbid. No. I'm not saying that I want to die, or I'm going to die soon, or anything like that. But so many people wait until they have some major life scare where they say, okay, I've got 6 months to live. These are the things I want to do.
Right.
And I'm like, why are we waiting?
Right.
Like why are we waiting? And so that's really what this trip is about. It's like, okay, I can sit here, I can be a designer and continue to make my living at any time, but I feel like the time is right for me to go do something really big. And it's because I want to live with intent and show my kids that this is what you're supposed to do. And I want it to be recorded, because I realize that that's the legacy that I'm leaving for them and for other people.
The nugget today: live with intent. I love that. Yeah. My earlier coaching call with a client, that was the key word, was intention. So it's a little
and
bit
intention is messy and bloody.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's not all packaged. I love this Seth Godin's quote that he says, the world doesn't reward people that read maps. It rewards people that draw maps. Right. And the truth is, everybody's looking for a map, but there is no map. And everybody you think has a map doesn't have a map. No. It's more about a posture than anything else, but it's also being open to, gosh, it's thrashing about. I mean, that's all I've done for 17 years, is thrash about. And that's how things get done, unfortunately. And people want the easy way, and they want the 1, 2, 3 checklist, and it just doesn't work that way. What happens is, then you end up with people that aren't living intentional. They're just living. And, that's not the life's work that I want.
How, if somebody wants to support you on your journey, how can they do that?
2 ways that they can connect with me. If they just go to lukemysse.com, there'll be continued updates there. That's my Twitter handle. It's LUKEMYSSE.com. And also on Twitter. If they want to connect with me, I'm going to make some announcements here in the next couple months about launching. The other thing they can do is, the nonprofit is stopsam.org. and SAM is the acronym for Severe Acute Malnutrition. And so there's opportunities to get involved with Stop SAM. Right now we're running a campaign where you like our page on Facebook, and we have somebody that's donating packets for every like. So a really simple way to not even have to give anything other than a like on Facebook. But there'll be continued campaigns and things through Stop SAM. The bike ride is going to be called Cycle Cause, and but I don't have anything live on that URL yet. So we're just in the process of kind of laying out the vision. But if they just follow me at Luke Mysse, they'll get updates on everything.
Okay, and I'll put out the links as well for everyone. Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Luke, for joining us today for Creative Jam. Any other insights or things that you want to add before we close today?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.